Hello, and welcome to Dash Talk. In relation to recent news, I have with me today the founder and CEO of Stakehound, Albert Castellana. Albert, how are you today?
Hi, Amanda. I'm very, very good. Like here next to the beach, everything is going great. How are you?
I'm not next to the beach, but I hope that I can pull it through this interview anyway. I know that I am not alone. You what?
No, thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate this.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here because I know that my response to this recent announcement about Dash, scheduled to be added to Stakehound, I was not alone in wondering, like, whoa, what is this, right? Because the headline is like wrapped DeFi tokens, if one can even wrap their head around that, combined with staking, and that's a whole lot. So before we jump into all of that, first of all, Albert, will you just tell us your background?
Absolutely. So essentially, I joined crypto in 2013. My background is in computer science, and before crypto, I was looking into hedge fund management through algorithmic trading. So while looking into that, I kind of looked into crypto. Eventually, got into Bitcoin, and then started kind of researching, right, with my computer science background. I started looking into Ethereum. I was impressed by kind of the versatility that it has, and started a consulting company in Barcelona trying to sell this technology to kind of corporations and governments.
Okay.
Quickly realized that it was very, very difficult to sell, especially back then. So I had to kind of search for, okay, what's the solution to this? Like, how can I actually get people to use this technology, right? And I found this at that point, little blockchain called NEM. And I kind of joined, started building things over there, and I was happy to be one of the first co-founders of the NEM Foundation. So I saw it grow like crazy. It was very interesting times, just a couple of years, but everything happened in those couple of years. Over that time, I learned a lot about how to sell this technology and what are the things that kind of have more appeal to the actual users of this technology. And eventually, that was 2017, the crypto market had boomed a lot. And something became very clear to me, which was the problem around scalability.
Okay.
Right? So I started researching scalability. I found this small startup called Radix, which is I think maybe now more known by everyone than it was back then. And I joined as the chief product officer, basically with the goal of understanding if you had a really highly scalable DL2 solution, how would people be using it, right? And we started looking at different things, from exchanges to stable coins, different things, but eventually realized that there's this thing that's extremely interesting that we've seen over the last couple of years, which is DeFi, decentralized finance, right? The idea is, how can we make it so that all these different products that we have been building, we meaning the market has been building over the last century in banking, how can we put them on a ledger so that users can interact with them without a third party being required in the middle, without a middleman, right? So we just thought that was very interesting and just started really researching that.
Okay. So you've been around, is what you're saying?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
If 3 months is a crypto year, I've been here quite a few of them, really.
I know, right?
Yes, you too. I'm a very big fan. I've been following your show from kind of the actual beginning. So yeah,
Albert, stop.
Very happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. So then, how and when did you roll this experience over into founding Stakehound? Yeah.
So I think it was about 6 months ago. We had been doing multiple product design sprints, right? So essentially, you spend a week looking into a specific product, doing a lot of research, doing interviews, and so on, and realize after all of these things that there's something that is actually staring directly at us, right? So Radix is a proof of stake token, network, right? So was NEM. So I mean, Dash is not so much. It's more like a masternode approach, but it's quite similar. I put them kind of in the same bucket. Okay. And there's this thing that is clear to me right now, which is that there is a big competition between staking and DeFi. As a user, as a crypto user, a crypto holder, you have to choose where do you want to put your assets.
Right. Okay.
Right. So what do you want to do? Do you want to have a master node and get certain yield, That's one way to do this. That's what everyone has been doing, in Dash for quite a few years right now. Or would you like to kind of participate in this hot new thing that is getting like 1,000 trillion % per year, like crazy stuff? Like most of those things are just games, right? Like people gambling and just people like having fun with their tokens.
Right.
But that's something that we couldn't do before. Like before we couldn't play with our tokens, we can just like have them all locked in a place, right? And
so
that's why
you are saying that you think you have a way for people to be able to have their cake and eat it too.
Exactly, right? So
okay,
if we can provide a way so that people can have, why do people stake? People stake because they want to get the yield and because they want to support the networks. Staking is a fundamental component of all these, like all the proof of stake networks, right? Without that, there would be no security for those networks.
Right.
So we can't really afford to let all this value go away from staking into something else, because then this value, these networks would, lose, appeal, lose security, right? So what we're essentially doing is, okay, how can we actually make it so that you can be participating in both things at the same time? That's what we're here to do.
Got it. Okay, so then why do you think that Dash in particular is a good fit to be a part of DeFi?
So the way I see this is every single layer one, I see them as an island, right? And every single island has its own commerce inside the island, its own like different things that are happening there, its own traditions, its own culture, right? The culture in Dash is huge. It's huge and it's very, very solid. A lot of people are very big fans and very big believers. And this is a lot of value on that community. Like crypto is about communities, right? You've been doing an amazing job on like putting this community together and making sure that they are rallying behind the Dash like network, right? And that thing is a shame that all these islands are completely isolated, right? Right now, the only way that you can go from from one island to the other is to go through a centralized exchange. You can only do it if you go to Binance and you buy or sell a token and you transfer it to the other wallet on the other ledger, right? Maybe this will get sorted in some ways, like with the Lightning Network, for example, right? But like so far, like the breaches that have been built across these different ledgers are not ideal in any way, right? So what we're trying to do is we want to build a bridge so that people that are doing commerce and that have kind of understand the culture, and like the culture from one island can go into another island and then can do commerce over there, right? So all these different things that Dash is building right now, like the Dash platform, those will be things specifically for the island that I'm sure many people in other islands will want to use for specific reasons, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to like create a way so that commerce can happen across islands in the best possible way, right? So the easiest way to understand it is one type of commerce within Dash is the master nodes. Right? You're offering a service with your money and you get something in reward. That's something that's happening in this island, right? Could we make it so that thing that's still happening can happen, in this case, for example, on the Ethereum DeFi island?
Right.
Right.
So then let's talk about that in particular. So how exactly can a Dash user benefit from staking plus DeFi? Like, just walk us through the process and what the anticipated benefits are.
All right, there's quite a lot of different things to break up here, right? So, for example, how much dollar worth is right now to have a master node in Dash?
It would be about $70,000.
So it's out of reach for a lot of people, right? $70,000 is something that many people can't have access to, can't just like park it and just wait because they have enough capital, like for a certain yield, right? So all that capital, what we can do is we can, what we're calling unleash it, right? Stakeout. We can unleash that capital, right? What we can do is that you potentially can go with what we are doing is essentially creating wrapped versions of a staked Dash, right? And that wrapped version of the staked Dash then can be used in DeFi. So this means, for example, that if you had a full master node and you had you can just tokenize those Dash. So you have 10,000 Dash, then you can move them into DeFi. You can have 10,000 stake Dash And then what you could do from here is you can potentially send them to Aave. Aave is a collateralized lending platform, which means that you could set that as collateral in Aave so that you can borrow against them. Right. See, that's a utility that until now was not possible.
So then on Stakehound's side, you are willing to accept deposits of less than a full masternode, like obviously, right? As you just alluded to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to kind of explain, like break this down kind of in order, right? The reality is that most of the users are never going to look into that process at all, right? Like the way that we're doing this is the following. Most of the users, about like 90% of the users that want to buy a staked Dash, right? Like right now, they're going to have a choice, right? What do I do? If I want to buy Dash, right? Or I want to be exposed to it, what do? I just go into Binance, buy the token, and then I download it to my wallet, and then I must set up the masternode. It's the only way that I can get this yield and I can participate in this economy that I was talking about, right? We're offering kind of another way, which is that people can just go into Uniswap and can directly buy the Stake Dash token, right? When you buy, say, 100 Stake Dash token, what's happening is that, yes, you're not buying the underlying asset, like the kind of, you're not buying the Dash itself, right? It's obviously not the same thing. There's someone in the middle. And this someone in the middle, which is Stakehound, what we're doing is we're creating a service. So you can understand the Stake Dash more like the representation of the service of staking one Dash, right? And we do it in a way that you can always come to us and sell the Stake Dash, one Stake Dash for one Dash, right? So most of the people are going to be buying Stake Dash directly on Uniswap, not requiring KYC, not requiring AML. They'll just go to Uniswap and say Stake Dash, and I want to buy 100 Ether worth of Stake Dash, right? And they're going to have it in their wallet, right? What's going to happen then is that every single day, they're going to see how the balance of Stake Dash that they have changes, right? Every single time that the system gets a reward, please go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, so the balance of staked Dash changing, that's as a result of the masternode rewards, right?
Exactly. So there's
being
kind of
converted into the staked Dash and paid out.
Precisely, right?
Yes,
so there's kind of mainly two different types of users. One type of user is the people that have no problem KYCing and AMLing, and most of them will be arbitragers. Arbitragers that will just make money, like selling it, like kind of like creating this Stake Dash and selling them on the market, and then kind of doing the full cycle. Right?
And they're on the Ethereum side. They're working
they're both, right? Like if you go and if you can buy like 10 Dash and you can convert them to Stake Dash, so now you have 10 Stake Dash, and now you can go to Uniswap and you can sell them at a higher price than the Dash that you bought before, then you have a profit. So arbitragers will make money kind of doing the full cycle all the time. And it's the same in reverse, like arbitragers can easily come and just like send us the Stake Dash and change them back into Dash, right? If they wanted to do this. But the reality here is that when you're looking into kind of what the price is, right? Price is supply and demand. And we know that the supply of Dash is limited. The supply of Stake Dash will even be more limited because it's a subset of it, right? It will always be, there will always be one Stake Dash in existence for every Dash that we have kind of in the system, right? And you will always be able to validate that. There will be a website where you're going to be able to like see all the different addresses where this is stored and so on. We're going to talk about this later, I think. But essentially, this means that as the price differs because they're a completely different thing. One is a representation of the service of staking. The other one is the actual asset, right? Like they are very much different things. What's going to happen is that the group, number one, like the arbitragers, are just going to be kind of doing this flow, right? And this essentially means that more Stake Dash are being created, right? Because there's more Dash coming into the system. Most of the users, that's group B, they're going to be just purchasing the Stake Dash directly on the market or trading it on the market, selling it on the market. There's no problem about that, right? So what I'm trying to say is that most of the people will not even see the KYC AML process. They'll just go directly to Uniswap or any other decentralized exchange or centralized exchange and buy it there. Right?
I see. Because the KYC AML process only comes into play for the people creating staked Dash with their Dash.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then, speaking of making a deposit in a custodianship sort of arrangement, who is your custody partner, who I understand is an institutional grade partner?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're trying to make it like it's very important in this market. If we've learned something over the time is that like you have to be compliant, right? So there's like it's something that for some of the early crypto enthusiasts has been quite shocking, but it's obvious now that we can't be on a gray line. We can't be like in the dark. It needs to be clear. So the way we work is we have a compliance provider called Altcoinomy that's helping us with all the KYC AML processes. The Stakehound as a company is incorporated in Switzerland, right? So we've got Altcoinomy, who's Swiss regulated, and they're like dealing with all the KYC AML. Then we've got Copper. Copper is the custody provider. They're based in UK. It's an institutional grade custody provider. It's insured. It's regulated. They're kind of their full focus is to be able to do that, and they've been great because they have been very adaptive with us with kind of the different things that we need, right? Like to build our project, we've required them to allow us to do things that normally they don't allow people to do. So very thankful for that. And then what's happening as well is that then we delegate the stake into a staking provider, right? So we've got Allnodes, who's a staking provider, and just like have been very helpful as well, like kind of like making sure that all the requirements that we have work out, right?
Sure.
And it allows us as well to have like a pretty good kind of fee for the system, right? Like obviously, like this has a cost as well as our operations, but I think like it's going to be around like 10-15% fee. That's essentially subtracted only from the rewards of the system, right?
Okay.
The thing here is that because it's compounding, right? Like we will like it's essentially a pool, right? Like we're gonna have more than one master node. We're gonna have multiple, and between all of them, like they're gonna be able to be creating more master nodes faster than any one single individual could with one single master node, or even with less than one master node, right? So one thing essentially compensates the other, right? I will give some more information as well on why this number. There's a caveat as well there, which is that we're going to be spending about a 30% of this fee to what's called kind of incentivized liquidity in the market. But I think that's maybe we can look into that a bit later.
Well, shoot. Yeah, I mean, I hope I have a proper question that prompts you to go more into that later, because this is a lot, Albert. This is a lot, and you're doing a great job explaining. My next question is, how can we verify that staked Dash tokens are created on like a one-to-one basis with Dash itself?
Right. So it's going to be pretty straightforward, really, as it's all in the blockchain, right? So you're going to have on our website a list of the addresses from the custody provider, right? You're going to always be able to access that and see that. And then obviously like on the Explorer, on the Ethereum Explorer, you're going to be able to see how many staked Dash have been minted. Right, so you'll always be able to see that they are one-to-one.
Okay, and then how do you see staked Dash being used, like in particular in the DeFi ecosystem? I know that you've been talking about how it can be purchased, like via these decentralized exchanges. Is like what would the utility be within that DeFi ecosystem?
Okay, so we've seen how over the last few years, essentially the last couple of years, quite a few different products have been built in DeFi, right? First of all, we saw Maker, right, being able to create a stable coin just kind of collateralized by Ether itself. I think that's super exciting. Then we've seen the creation of the automated market makers, right? This started with Bancor, then got kind of taken over by Uniswap, but essentially we've seen how anyone can now go into an exchange and be part of the exchange. Anyone can go into Uniswap, for example, and provide liquidity. When you're providing liquidity, what you're doing is you're enabling the market. By enabling the market, you mean that anyone can come in and trade against you, and you would be keeping the fees of every one of those trades, right? So essentially what it's doing is it's democratizing the market itself, right? Like you can participate in the market, you can get fees of that. Like Uniswap about a month ago beat Coinbase on the 24 hours volume. We're talking $300 million of daily volume on Uniswap, right? That's
wow.
The second biggest exchange after Coinbase. It's ridiculous. No, sorry, after Binance. So Binance,
right.
Uniswap, and Coinbase, right? like all of those, like the reason why this is like for the people that are maybe not so kind of acquainted with kind of all the DeFi stuff, right? It's very interesting how this thing called liquidity providing is, right? You provide liquidity, you give some Ether and you give some stake Dash, for example, and you're allowing people to come in and trade against you. So anyone that has some Ether can buy the stake Dash from you. What it means as well is that you would be getting 0.3% of every one of those trades. Like the fee that normally is kept by the centralized exchange, like Coinbase or like Binance, now anyone can participate, providing the capital for it, and get that extra fee, right? So if I think on like what will the stake Dash be used for, there's obviously multiple different things. I think that just if you look into the yield component here, right? What's going to happen is that anyone will be able to purchase stake Dash one way or another, right? They'll be able to provide liquidity for it in the market, and there will be more liquidity for stake Dash, right? So this is like another way for people to acquire or to enter the ecosystem in a way, right? So this means that anyone can get extra yield for that. If you have 0.3% of every single trade, like, I don't know, like essentially, if you look into uniswap.info, you're going to see that the first pools, like the top 10 pools, the last one, I think it's got like 10 million liquidity, which is not that much really, right? They're making a few tens of thousands of dollars in fees every day for about $10 million worth of liquidity, right? So the yield can be very big, right? And what we're saying here is that because of the system, because of how it works, you're going to be able to provide liquidity to stake Dash, and then stake Dash will be increasing, right? You put 10,000 stake Dash, and then tomorrow you're going to have 10,000 and whatever, 10, for example, right? And you're providing liquidity to it in the meantime, which means that you're getting an added yield. It's not one or the other. You're getting both things, right? The yield from the staking that we're doing in the system, plus the yield from the fees that are happening because of you providing liquidity.
And then how, if at all, does this translate to Dash liquidity?
So there's multiple things here. First is like the reason why Dash has less liquidity in a way, it's because most of the Dash is locked in masternodes. Right, like that's the thing. It's very good. It's been very good in capturing that. Right. What we're doing here is we're allowing people that are here not just to support the network or not to kind of have the node themselves, which obviously there will be a lot of people that will just want to do that anyway. Right. We're allowing people that have other kind of intentions to have an alternate way to do this. Right. To get exposure, to get kind of to be affected by this extra yield as well. Right. So the way I say it is, it's going to be like, obviously, they're not the same, right? It's like saying, when a new exchange opens, right? When a new exchange, it really depends on how many assets are in that exchange. It will relate to the liquidity in that exchange. That's one point, right? But at the same time, you need to have potentially like a market maker in that exchange, right? So normally when you open an exchange, you have to send some token there, so say some Dash, for example. Then you have to pay for a market maker to be trading the pair over there, and that has a cost, right? What we're saying is essentially a similar system where it will depend on how many assets are in the system, right? And then we will be making sure that we can incentivize people to provide liquidity. So, in other words, we're going to be incentivizing people with, I think it's about 5% of the total reward, people that provide liquidity to the stake Dash, right? So the people that provide liquidity to stake Dash on Uniswap will be getting this 5% extra that will flow back into them as an incentive mechanism.
Got it.
And then the thing maybe like you could ask like, why do you want to do that, right? And it's essentially
why, Albert? Why?
It's essentially the continuation to the question of like, what can you do with it, right? Like, we want people to be able to borrow against their assets, right? We want, like, this is an important one. I want you to be able to go to Cream or Compound or Aave. I want you to be able to send the stake Dash and get back dollars so that your capital now it's even more free to move, right? You can't even like just trade it while you're actually earning rewards. You can just like provide liquidity to it, but actually I want you to be able to borrow against it, right? And protocols like Aave, which are decentralized protocols, need to be able to, for example, liquidate the collateral, right? So you put $10,000 worth. If the price goes down, they need to be able to, one, know what the price is, and two, liquidate that asset if necessary. Right. The only way to liquidate this asset is if we have enough liquidity on the system. So it's a very important part of this.
So then, will Stakehound be exploring any DeFi functionality via Dash platform? I know you had mentioned Dash platform a little earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said before, like we believe in this kind of sea of islands, right? And we are very, very happy to be able to work together, because I think that what you guys are building is very impressive. It will find its own kind of use cases, right? And what we're always going to be trying to do is we're always going to be trying to kind of empower and follow, right? Like kind of both things, the DeFi ecosystem in any way, right? So where do you think that Stake Dash will be useful is one thing. At the same time, like people that are trying that for example, that have staked ETH, right? Because in just a few months, it's going to be that, well, actually like 2 weeks actually right now, is anyone will be able to lock up their ETH, right? And then what, right? So what, get some more yield, right? So this competition we were talking about happens for Ethereum as well. And if we can do this well, we're going to be able to kind of issue these staked ETH tokens on the Dash platform. Now, we need to listen to the market. We need to understand what are the features that are required to be able to do this, right? For example, as you have probably understood from this conversation, is that automated market makers are a very important component of the system, right? For us, it's very difficult to deploy stake tokens anywhere that doesn't have that feature, for example, right? So we're going to be working very closely with the Dash team and understanding, what is necessary, what are the different components, and try to help as much as possible to kind of see what is needed to be able to issue all those different tokens directly on Dash.
Got it. Well, Albert, I think that just leaves me with one final question, which is, when is Staked Dash set to become available? And then where can people go in the meantime if they want to learn more before it happens?
Well, really very soon. Actually, what we're doing right now is we're kind of doing all the preparations. Every time that we kind of issue a new stake token, we have to get all these different partnerships in line, like compliance and staking. Compliance, custody, and staking. All of them to really speak the same language in a way, as well as our systems. But essentially, we're already almost there. I think that in the next month or so, you're going to have some news on people being able to start participating in the system. The token wouldn't be launched yet. So essentially the steps that it follows is this. First, we set up all the infrastructure. Second, we ask people that want to participate early to join in. There will be certain rewards for people that do this, essentially because we need to issue the token with certain supply, right? Like for it to be really usable, it needs to have certain supply. For example, if we issue the Stake Dash and there was 10 Stake Dash, then nobody will be able to do anything with it, right? So we give some time for that. I think that would be around mid-November starting. And then basically by mid-December, I think it's going to be when we issue the Stake Dash itself, for everyone that has already kind of, participated in the system, right? From then on, it's all going to be about building the different relationships and making sure that that you can do as much as possible, right? So how do we incentivize liquidity? How do we get it to be on Aave? How do we get to be on the different yield farming schemas, all these different games that are being built on DeFi, right? I think it's going to be a bit of everyone's job to make sure that we have it on as many places as possible, right? That you can participate, that you can use it for as many things as possible. But we're very focused on building these relationships already. I think that, I don't know, for the people that have been doing yield farming, I mean, ups and downs right now, it's a very tough moment in the market maybe. But those are things that have created technologies, that have created kind of economic behaviors that are very interesting, right? So being able to do this with Dash, I think that everyone will see. I hope that everyone will see the value of doing this, and we'll be happy to kind of foster this ecosystem as much as possible.
Island to island. Well, Albert, it sounds like you really have a lot to do, and I should probably just let you get back to work right now.
Thank you very much for having me here, Amanda. It's really good to see you, and yeah, thank you all, and it's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to speak with you as well. That's what I have for you this week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.